do you see Jonathan India coming up this year?
I think it'd have to be a perfect storm. I think there'd have to be an injury. I believe last year he kind of had a down start to the year, but I think he picked it up at the end. He's a guy, though, that, going a little speculation, I wouldn't be surprised if was moved before the start of the year.
Too much pot tar.
way too much pot tar.
Welcome back to another episode of Too Much Pod Tar as we continue our 30 teams and 30 pods series with the Reds. And they've had a productive offseason. They look like they're going to be contending in that division. So for this pod, I have Johnnie returning for another podcast. It's always good to have him on here. So, and then also a Reds fan, Nick Kirby, who also writes about the Reds on Red Leg Nation. He's been doing that since 2013. So welcome to the show, guys.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Good to be back on with you, Alex.
Yeah, of course. So, obviously the one big thing to talk about is the signing of Mike Moustakas for the Reds. That was a huge signing. Adds another bat to their middle of the lineup. Probably be a cleanup hitter. And he's definitely a good guy to have.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a huge need for the Reds at second base. It's kind of like a dark hole for the Reds last year. Was Scooter Gennett, 17 and 18, was super productive for the Reds, but fell into injuries last year. And the Reds they had no answers at second base. So, in addition to just getting a really good player, Moustakas, he fills a huge need. So yeah, definitely looking forward to Moustakas and seeing what he can bring to the Reds.
Yeah.
Moustakas was a nice move. I was a little surprised with the 4-year deal, but he's earned himself. I think in the last 2 years, he's had 1-year deals each year, if I'm not mistaken. He had the 1-year deal from Kansas City, and then he got traded, and then he had the 1-year deal last year from Milwaukee. So he's kind of played on 2 1-year deals so far. So it's nice to see him get a multi-year deal because he proved himself last year. Obviously, I think he had 35 home runs last year, played a lot of second base. He should definitely, if he hit 35 home runs in Milwaukee at Miller Park, he should definitely be fine with hitting at least 30 at the Great American Ballpark. So he's going to fit right in that lineup, no doubt.
Yeah, the Reds may have had to go an extra year probably to sign him. When you're kind of coming off, they haven't been to the playoffs since 2013. Sometimes you have to go a little farther to get a big player. So it was really good to see the Reds. The Reds before this year really had not done anything in free agency. It had been all homegrown guys and trades. So I believe they've spent almost $100 million or right at $100 million so far in free agency, which for the Reds that's a huge step in a different direction. So definitely good to see them doing that.
Yeah, that lineup's going to be scary. Ed Moustakas in the middle of that. I mean, they're going to contend this year, definitely.
Yeah, they definitely needed to upgrade batting wise. The Reds had always kind of it's kind of weird. The Reds are usually always have had a better lineup and kind of struggle with pitching, especially in the ballpark they play in. But last year going into the year, I think everyone thought they'd have a really good lineup and they'd kind of have mediocre pitching. But it was the other way around. They had great pitching and they really had just a lot of down years last year. A lot of guys who didn't produce. So adding Moustakas, and then they also added Shogo Akiyama. Hopefully I'm saying that right. From Japan, so he should be a huge addition. Also, high on base guy, and he can kind of be a fourth outfielder for the Reds. So he should add something too.
He plays a little infield too, doesn't he? I was under the impression he's kind of like a utility guy, mostly outfield, but
I think he just plays all three outfield positions.
Okay.
But
maybe I picked someone else, but I thought I saw
Senzel.
Yeah.
Nick Senzel. He was the Reds' top number 2 overall draft pick. I think it was 2016.
Yeah, 16 or 17.
He came out of college. He's kind of flown through the system. Really, he's hit at every level. But he's kind of battled injuries the last couple of years. So last year, beginning of May was his debut with the Reds. Got off to a really good start, but kind of slowed down as the year went on. So he actually came up as a third baseman. They kind of moved him all around. And then last year, they actually moved him to center field because after the Reds traded Billy Hamilton, they had a big need in center field. So he's going into 2020. He's their projected starting center fielder, but he can also play all the infield positions. So that kind of gives them some flexibility. If someone gets hurt, they could move Senzel to the infield and have Akiyama play center field. So I think that kind of gives them some more flexibility, which is obviously huge in a long season.
Yeah, I was wondering what their outfield would look like. I mean, obviously got Jesse Winker in right field, and I love Winker. I think this guy needs like a full season, full healthy season, everything. He's kind of made his way up. He played like 40 games his first year, 90 the second year, a little over 100 last year. I just love the guy's plate discipline and the way just love the way he hits. So if he's playing right, Senzel's playing center, we got Aquino in left.
Well, Aquino would be in right. Winker would be in left. Aquino's got a great arm. Winker does not. So Winker be in left. I echo. I love Jesse Winker. I think he's very underrated. He's battled some injuries too, like I think everyone on the Reds the last couple of years. Winker cannot hit lefties though. He pretty much every level, even in the minor leagues, he didn't hit lefties well. So he'll only be a platoon player, but he'll start 70% of games against right-handed pitching. And the Reds actually had a guy, Phil Irvin, who was a top pick years and years ago, kind of never really got his footing. But last year he came up and was Winker's platoon partner. And he actually was one of the best hitters in baseball against left-handed pitchers. So I don't know if he can repeat that, but he seems like a guy who can at least be a part-time platoon partner with Winker against the lefties. So I think going into the year, you probably have Winker and Irvin kind of platooning left. Senzel in center, Aquino in right. But Akiyama, he's on the doorstep to really take, center field. Senzel, all those injuries, problems, he could very easily get hurt. Or one of the infielders get hurt, they move Senzel to the infield. Or Aquino, who I really love, but he doesn't have a big track record. So it's kind of interesting to see if he'll be able to repeat on that. He had that huge August where he was the best player on the planet for a couple weeks. But if he kind of, if that was kind of a little bit of a fluke where it takes him some time getting going, they have a replacement for Wright. So I think they have some flexibility, which is, really nice going into the year.
And that's, as you kind of mentioned already, let's talk about some of their starting rotation. Their rotation is pretty strong. They added Wade Miley also this offseason, so gives them a solid 4 there. And then, obviously they have Trevor Bauer, who they got at the deadline last year. Sonny Gray, who had a solid year last year, to my disdain with Yankees fan.
Yeah, I think it really, if you're talking about the Reds rotation, it's kind of weird. You have to start with their pitching coach, Derek Johnson. He's kind of developing a folklore in Cincinnati with some of the turnarounds he's had. You could just name guy after guy that since he's been with the Reds in 1 year has improved. Sonny Gray, the biggest. He was his pitching coach at Vanderbilt. So they kind of had that camaraderie already. And so I think that was big in the Reds getting Sonny Gray, getting the trade from the Yankees was Derek Johnson felt like I think he could fix him. And he was an all-star last year, so the results. Luis Castillo, really, really good. Him and Sonny Gray kind of like co-aces. He's younger, got a really high upside. And then Trevor Bauer, he's the guy. If you look at like some of the Zips, I think Zips actually has him as the highest wins above replacement starter for the Reds. So I think he's going to bounce back. Bauer's really into the drive line. I don't know if you guys are familiar at all with drive.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Reds have really jumped in on that. They hired Kyle Brody, who was the director from Driveline, and he's like handling all their minor league pitching coordinating. So he's like, they're really getting into video and all the advanced, pitching tools. So yeah, and then Wade Miley, adding him, just another piece. Anthony DeSclafani has been really, really good the last 2 years. And then they have a guy, Tyler Malley, who was kind of up and down last year, but he, for a number 6 starter going into the year, I don't know if there's a better number 6 starter in baseball, because he has a really, really high ceiling also. So, yeah, definitely the rotation looks stacked, but we thought the lineup looked stacked last year, and it didn't pan out, so I don't want to, jump too far ahead.
I love the rotation. I mean, Trevor Bauer is going into his free agent year too. This is the last year of his arbitration. He's said before that he wants to go 1-year deals at a time. But if you guys have employed this Driveline thing, and he's all about that. He's been all about that since basically they started. So, I mean, if that's something that he feels comfortable with, I don't see a reason why you couldn't re-sign him for future. You do have a couple guys in the minor leagues, but I love Tyler Malley. I love that guy. I think he's a number 2 or 3 eventually when he gets going, when he gets regular time, when he gets his command, and everything, a few years in the majors. I think he's someone that could really develop. Like you said, he's a high ceiling guy. He misses a lot of bats. So I definitely like him. Sonny Gray, I've never been sold on. Even when he was in Oakland, I've just never been sold on his stuff. He just seems to me that he's gonna fade out at some point. He reminds me too much of like a Tim Lincecum, like a guy like that. Like I don't know. Maybe that's just me looking at his windup, looking at his mechanics and stuff like that. I just feel like he's gonna get hurt. He's a smaller guy, and it's just me. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Looking at it and whatever. I love Castillo. I love Bauer. Love Melly, and a couple of the guys you have coming up. I mean, Hunter Green, unfortunately, had Tommy John surgery last year, so he's going to be a work in progress next year probably. They're going to give him ample amount of time to recover. Obviously, he's so young. I think he's still 19 or 20 years old. And Lodolo is another one.
Yeah.
That should be solid. But talking about the pitching staff, at least going forward. But, I mean, at least you have a couple guys, a couple pitchers in the minor leagues that can step up. If Bauer leaves, Gray you still have for another couple of years. Castillo you have under control for another couple of years. DeSclafani I like, So they definitely have options pitching, no doubt. I mean, it depends on, other than Raciel Iglesias and Amir Garrett, what else does the bullpen look like?
Right.
Well, Michael Lorenzen has been a solid reliever. He's had a couple good seasons, not great, but good seasons where you feel like he's a reliable reliever. He's interesting because he has played center field some also.
He can hit too, can he?
Yeah, he can hit. I don't know. I think he's probably up to six or 7 career home runs. Hopefully, I'm not quoting.
He's like the Michael Owings.
That's a great blast from the past. I loved Micah Owings back in the day. But yeah, he's really good. And then the one guy that really is good, who I think's kind of gone under the radar, probably some on like a national level, would be Robert Stevenson. He was Red starter, really top prospect. never was able to put it together, was never able to throw strikes consistently. And he really had a breakout year last year in the bullpen. He kind of tailed off a little bit at the end. But if you look at some of the advanced numbers, even some of like the StatCast numbers, really, really, really good stuff. And it seems like Derek Johnson has been able to work really well with him. So I wouldn't be surprised if Robert Stevenson isn't the Reds' best reliever by the end of 2020. I think he has that potential.
Yeah, a little post hype there because he did have potential coming up. I mean, remember Robert Stevens? He's a big dude too, big right-handed pitcher.
Yeah, it's just throwing strikes with him. When he throws strikes, he's his stuff's electric. He's hard to hit. But when he doesn't throw strikes, no one can live not throwing strikes. So.
Got to be able to miss bats in the strike zone.
Yeah,
that's the key nowadays. Is that players are going to spit on balls that are like close to the strike or whatever. You got to be able to miss bats in the strike zone.
Yeah.
That's key. And Stevenson, like you said, Stevenson's got the stuff. He's got the pedigree. I remember him a few years ago. He was like the big right-hander who's coming up, going to be a starter. But I think
he was close to he was out of options. It was out of options still, but he was out of options last year. And honestly, when he made the opening day roster last year, most people were surprised. Most people thought the Reds were going to cut him or DFA him and probably lose him. Someone I'm sure would have taken a flyer on him. But yeah, he was kind of like he was the last man put on the roster last year, and it looks like it paid off because he stuck with them the whole year. Was a really solid reliever for them. So he's the guy I would say maybe the most under the radar guy to watch.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention the Michael Lorenzen. Didn't he say something about he wanted to be like a UFC fighter or something, like he said something about it the other night during the fight.
I don't know. I haven't heard that one. I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, that guy, he can do a little bit of everything. He's pretty jacked too. So I certainly wouldn't want to mess with him.
No, he does like the most extreme workouts.
Yeah. The Reds were wearing those sleeveless jerseys a lot last year. They were doing 150 years of as a professional organization, so they were doing cool throwback uniforms every home weekend series throughout the year, and so they had a couple sleeveless ones, and Lorenzen really enjoyed that, getting to wear those.
Showing up the guns.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the same with like Derek Dietrich too. He was really loving that too.
Yeah. Dietrich, unfortunately, is the Reds DFA'd him. It stinks. Everyone he was a huge fan favorite. I think they have enough internal pieces that some guys for the bench that are probably cheaper and more cost effective, like Josh Van Meter. He's a guy who has some upside on their bench, kind of fills that role.
Where do you see? Let me ask you, Nick. When do you see? Do you see Jonathan India coming up this year?
I think it'd have to be a perfect storm. I think there'd have to be an injury.
Okay.
To my knowledge,
they
don't think he can play shortstop. So it'd be second or third, or a corner outfield spot is probably his only path to the big leagues in the near future. I believe last year he kind of had a down start to the year, but I think he picked it up at the end. He's a guy, though, that going a little speculation, I wouldn't be surprised if was moved before the start of the year. The Reds are really trying to acquire a shortstop. That's the position the Reds really need the most.
I was going to say, who's your shortstop?
Freddie Galvis.
You guys signed him, but
Freddie Galvis wouldn't kill you.
Stopgap. Oh, he's not going to kill you. He's a great defensive shortstop.
Yeah, the new Statcast numbers came out, and he actually rated over the last 3 years as one of the best in baseball.
Did you know? Let me ask you this question. Let me say this. Did you know? And it's funny because I just looked this up yesterday. Did you know that Freddie Galvis is second all time in? I know fielding percentage is flawed, but he's second all time in fielding percentage at shortstop with players who played for 500 games at shortstop.
That is wild. I did not know that.
He's second to
fielding percentage over that long of a sample is probably a little more valuable than like year to year. But
he's second all time to Omar Vizquel.
That's wild. I would have never guessed that.
Freddie Galvis of all people. I was like, I saw his name. I was like, what? Really?
That's
we didn't really get to see him a lot. The Reds picked him up off waivers right at the end of the waiver and trade were the same last year, so it was right at the end of July. He got sick. He had the flu, and the Reds had Jose Iglesias, who for some reason they kept running out there every day. That's a whole nother thing.
I like the defensive shortstops, obviously.
I liked what I saw from him, but I think when the Statcast numbers came out, I didn't realize how good of a defender he was.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think he would certainly be serviceable. He wouldn't kill you, but if the Reds could upgrade there, I mean that's what could take them from. I think right now they're probably a fringe playoff team. I think they can compete in the division. The division's down. But if they could get a major shortstop, I know they've been trying to get Lindor or Seager or Story or Correa. Somehow they could land one of them. I think that takes them to another level. So, but I think India would be certainly one of the potential pieces to move.
If they got Lindor or Story to play shortstop in that infield, they'd win that division.
Oh yeah. I think
that in my mind.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, Freddie Galvis he's fine. He's fine. He's okay. He's good defensively, so he got you there. And you have Moustakas, who's going to hit 30 home runs from the second base position, and Suarez, who's going to hit 35 from the third base position. You know, Votto's on a decline in the lineup, though. Aquino, like you said, you don't know what you're going to get from him. Yeah, he had a great month last year, but pitchers adjust. You know, we'll see. You know, Senzel is coming off injury. Winker, another one that hasn't played 120 games in a season yet. So you're not sure about the lineup. I mean, the pitching, Castillo's great. Gray is great. I love Bauer, Maile, DeSclafani, you know, all those guys. I'm worried. Personally, this is the way I look at the Reds. I'm worried about that bullpen.
Yeah.
Especially. Because, I mean, like you said, you had Stevenson who had a nice piece of the season last year. And he looks like a solid bullpen piece. Amir Garrett, I love. And Raciel Iglesias is solid. I just don't know during the course of 162 games if you can wear those guys down. Because I don't know how much more you have in the bullpen. That's the problem I see with the Reds this year. Like you said, the division is going down. I mean, the Cardinals lost Ozuna. He signed with the Braves today. So Ozuna's gone. I mean, the Cubs and Brewers are on the downside, obviously, because they've lost a few people too. And the Cubs are talking about trading Bryant, like, you know. So this is definitely the Reds' time to strike. So I would like to see them make a move for Story or Lindor and get this now. Especially Story, because I think he has 3 years of control. Lindor only has 2. So, I mean, to extend the years of control where you have a shortstop. I mean, you put Votto, Moustakas, Story, and Suarez in the infield. I mean, that's pretty sick, dude.
Yeah. We can dream. I think it's probably more likely if the Reds get a shortstop. It might not happen until after the season starts. That's kind of my gut feeling. I think they're really trying right now. There really was no free agents outside of Didi Gregorius, who I personally wasn't sold on. His defensive numbers were really.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
I didn't like him much more of a Freddie Galvis. So, I think they played it right where, they're just going to, try to find someone on a trade. But I could see them, maybe the Indians just get off to a disaster of a start, and then they say, you know what, hey, okay, we tried, now we're going to trade Lindor, or the Rockies, they get off to a disaster of a start, and they say, you know what, now we're going to trade Story. When it might resonate a little better with their fan base, they might understand it a little better. So I could see that, and Galvis is a, good placeholder until then.
I could definitely see that with the Rockies too, because they've been talking about trading Arenado. They just signed him. Yeah. They've been talking about trading him. If they actually move Arenado, why not move Story? Between those two guys, you can rebuild your whole farm system. And they have infielders. They have Brendan Rodgers. They have Garrett Hampson. They have Ryan McMahon. There's a Rockies preview, but I'm just saying, they could rebuild their system by trading those guys. And someone like, you don't need Arenado, obviously, because you have Suarez for the next 6 years, I think. So, but Story is someone definitely. He's got the speed, the power speed combo. He's under control for the next, I think, 3 years, maybe even 4. So, that's someone, like you said before with Jonathan India. He doesn't have a place to play. He's a top-notch prospect. He hit well on AA last year in the limited time he did have. From the stats I saw, he had almost a 400 on-base percentage. His plate discipline is great, which is something I really look at in the minor leagues. If you have plate discipline in the minor leagues, you generally will hit in the majors. It's something that it's hard to teach. Either you recognize pitches or you don't. Once you get to college and the minor leagues, either you recognize them or you don't. So plate discipline is a very good predictor of future success. And Jonathan India has that. And that's something that, if the Rockies were going to trade Story and Arenado to rebuild their farm system, if they go in that route, trading someone like Story to the Reds, Jonathan India would definitely be someone they'd want back to play third base there.
Right.
So that could work. And I agree with your point with the Rockies and Indians as far as Lindor and Story. If they're not doing well during the season, all right, time to move on. Now it's time to trade. So I could definitely see the Reds being in contention halfway through the season and being buyers, especially for someone who's got a couple years of control.
Yeah, I think the Reds this year, every sign points to they are really putting all their chips in this year. Maybe not all in the sense where they're going to completely mortgage the future.
Next couple years. But
it's time. And it's a feeling from the front office to the owner to every fan. It's been too long. You got to get it done this year. You got to do whatever it takes. And
I guess just kind of what next thing would just be what do you think the record? What's the prediction for the record? Do you think they're going to be at? I'd say around 80 some wins, maybe I think 85 would be where their ceiling would be. 85, maybe somewhere around there, 82, 83.
Yeah, I guess I'd probably have to be a little more optimistic. Just being a Reds fan, you're always a little more optimistic about the team. The one thing I would say is so their Pythagorean last year was 80 and 82, and they really didn't try the last 6 to 8 weeks of the season. They traded away Puig. They traded away some other guys. They were really kind of giving some guys some playing time. Winker, Senzel, even Votto didn't play much down the stretch. I think Senzel wouldn't have been able to play either way, but I think Winker and Votto, if they were in a pennant race, probably could have kept playing. So I think the Reds were I know people hate to throw out unlucky. I think they really were legitimately unlucky last year. They were terrible in one-run games. So I think, hopefully luck is bouncing back on their side. I think their ceiling probably right now is probably 87 wins, which could win the NL Central. I don't think there's going to be a juggernaut. And the one good thing for the other 4 teams is the Pirates, I think, for the first time are really going to be really bad. So there'll actually be someone in the division that you can theoretically beat up on. So that should maybe, throw some more wins out there. But yeah, I would say 87. I'd say if they go out and get a Lindor Story, I think they could push themselves up to 90. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, definitely. When somebody like Lindor would definitely push them up, like over the edge. I'd say they even win. I think they win the division if they get Lindor or Story.
Yeah, I see the Reds. I see their ceiling actually is 90 wins, about 90, and I can see them pushing for the division, just because the division, like we said, the Pirates are going to be bad. The Pirates are a bad team, unless they have everyone completely healthy, and even at that, I think they're a 500 team.
Yeah.
I think the Reds, with production from their lineup this year, like Nick said, they were banged up last year. Senzel, Winker didn't play a whole year. I mean, you had issues there. Avado, if he bounces back a little bit, you got Moustakas there. If they make a trade for Lindor to play shortstop, and they can solidify that bullpen a little bit, also at the trading deadline, because I still think that bullpen it's not deep. Rastil Iglesias and Amir Garrett, I love. Stevenson still, can he pitch more than a month or two? So he's still a question mark. Over the course of 162 games, is that bullpen going to hold up? I don't think so, and that's why I don't think they'll win the division. But if they can get production from Stevenson for the first few months, trade for a bullpen or piece or two, and actually make a major trade for like a Lindor or a Story at the trade deadline, I could definitely see the Reds winning 90 games. But I'm going to predict about a 500 record. I'll give them 80 wins this year overall. But the ceiling, I think, is 90. And I think they could possibly win the division if everything plays right.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. They definitely have the talent there. Just like you said, I think their bullpen is what's the question mark. I don't know what if they can get leads in games, like big leads, then I think they'll be all right, because I do like that the lineup now with Moustakas. I think they'll be able to score some runs in games.
The Reds have also been really good the last couple years at adding to their bullpen really late in the offseason. Jared Hughes and David Hernandez, I want to say they were like February signings. So I wouldn't count the Reds bullpen, yet. I think they probably are still looking at. One guy they did add was Nate Jones on a minor league deal, who has a lot of upside. I believe he was the closer for a while for the White Sox. Yeah. He's coming off some injuries. So he's a guy that, if they could get him healthy, I believe he's from the Cincinnati area too, which is just kind of a nice, cool thing for him. He could be a really good piece. I think they've done a pretty good job kind of finding diamonds in the rough for their bullpen the last couple of years. So that's kind of, I think, something to watch kind of over the next month leading into spring training.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on the show to talk some Reds for the preview, and hopefully it'll be a good season for them.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me on. I enjoyed talking with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. It was fun. So, yeah, you can check Nick on at Twitter at Nicholas P. Kirby, and you can see his tweets about articles he does for the site he writes for, which is Red Leg Nation. So yeah, definitely check him out there, and follow Johnnie at jball0202, the Scorecrow at the Scorecrow, myself at Alex Keeler, and be sure to check out the rest of these episodes of this series, 30 teams, as we're getting close to the spring training pitchers and catchers report, and I believe it's now a little more than 20 days, so definitely getting close. It's exciting. So yeah, make sure you check out all our articles on the Scorecrow, as we're gonna be getting previews out as we get closer to the season. We have a bunch of previews for all the teams, and then during the season there'll be a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, just a reminder, you can never have too much pod tower.